Have you ever paid for a wedding and then been told you weren't invited? While I was getting ready for my wife's sister's wedding in Maui, my wife looked at me and said, "Sorry, honey, I forgot to buy your plane ticket." The wedding I paid for. She said it calmly, almost cheerfully, like she was talking about bad weather, not pushing her own husband out of his own marriage. I didn't yell. I just nodded and realized that something had died right there in our bedroom. If you've ever felt used, disrespected, or quietly replaced, this story will hit close to home. Before you decide whether you'd forgive her or walk away, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and keep following me. Because that was the day I disappeared for a year, and she never saw it coming. My name's Caleb Hartman. I build custom furniture out of the garage behind our place in the Oregon suburbs. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. You learn to respect weight, where it sits, where it shifts, what holds and what gives. Load points, stress lines, the small, invisible places where a solid thing starts to fail. I'm also the guy who shows up. I pay the bills on time. I keep the place running. If something breaks, I fix it. If someone needs help moving, I'm there. That's how I was raised. That's how I've lived. So when my wife started packing for her sister's wedding in Maui, I watched from the doorway like I was looking at a stranger. 4 suitcases spread across our bed, not weekend bags, full-on new life luggage, outfits I'd never seen, designer labels, new heels, a bikini with the tag still on like she'd bought it for someone else's eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt unnecessary, like the man in the house had become background noise. What made it worse? Emily's voice from that phone call a few weeks earlier, still stuck in my head. 3 weeks before Maui, Emily called me out of the blue. Ruth's sister, 29, elementary school teacher, the kind of person who still says thank you like she means it. Her voice was soft, almost nervous. She told me she hoped I could make it, that it wouldn't feel right if I wasn't there. She sounded sincere, like she was inviting family, not filling seats. Ruth was in the room during that call, sitting on the edge of the couch, painting her nails, not looking up once. No smile, no comment, nothing. Just that quiet little distance she'd gotten good at. When I hung up, I stood there a second longer than normal, like my body was waiting for her to say something. She didn't. Later that night, I asked the simplest question in the world. Does Emily know I'm going? Ruth didn't even pause. She shrugged like it was a weather update. I'm sure she does. Sure, not yes. Not of course. Just sure. That's the thing about lies. They don't always sound loud. Sometimes they sound lazy. And that's when the forgot your ticket story stopped feeling like an accident and started feeling like a decision. After Emily's call, I tried to keep it normal. That's what you do when you've got a mortgage and a marriage. You don't jump to conclusions. You don't blow up your own house over a bad feeling. So I waited until Ruth was packing, folding clothes like she had all the time in the world, and I asked it like it was no big deal. When did you book your ticket? 2 months ago, she said, quick and casual, like she'd rehearsed it. I nodded. Okay. And mine? That's when she finally looked up, just for a second. Oh, I thought you were handling yours. I stared at her. In 10 years, I'd always booked both. Same card, same confirmation email, same habit. Ruth, everything's sold out? I asked. Peak season, she said, zipping a suitcase. I checked. Show me, I said. Just show me where you checked. She laughed, light, tinkly, social. The laugh she saves for parties. Caleb, don't be paranoid. Paranoid. Like I was the problem for noticing the missing piece in my own life. That word hit me harder than the forgot ever did. I didn't fight her, not because I believed her, because I didn't trust myself to speak without breaking something I couldn't put back together. I just nodded, like a man taking a bad call at work, and walked out to the garage. That shop is my refuge. Cedar, oil, clean sawdust. My tools on the wall, lined up the way I like them. Order. Control. Usually the smell alone slows my heart down. That night it didn't. I sat at my drafting table and stared at the grain patterns on a plank like they could tell me what was true. Then I pulled out my phone and opened our joint credit card statement. My thumb moved like it was on autopilot. I told myself the same thing I tell clients when they get emotional about a design change. I don't do drama, I do facts, scroll, march charges, travel, and then it jumped off the screen, clean as a cut line, 2 tickets to Kona. Not 1, 2. My throat went dry, my hands didn't shake. That scared me more than anything, because the moment I saw it, I didn't feel confused anymore, I felt clear. I stared at that 2 tickets line until the numbers stopped looking real. Then I tapped into the details and pinched the screen like I was trying to zoom into a lie and find the seam. Passenger 1, Ruth Hartman, of course. Passenger 2, Colin Price. It didn't hit me like a scream. It hit me like ice water. Quiet, immediate, total. Colin Price. The name I'd heard maybe twice in a decade, always tossed out like a joke. That guy from college, Ruth once said, rolling her eyes. Total narcissist. Like mentioning him was beneath her. I remembered the type without even needing a picture. Smooth handshake, too white smile. The kind of man who talks about opportunities and never once about responsibility. The kind of guy who walks into a room like the room owes him space. I sat there in my garage with my phone glowing in my hands, tools hanging on the wall behind me, and I realized something ugly about myself. I wasn't surprised. I was confirmed. My chest felt hollow. My mind didn't race. It got precise. I can't unsee it. And once you see it, you start measuring everything that came before. Ruth dragged her suitcases across the hallway the next morning like it was any other trip. Wheels clicking over the floor, I'd refinished myself. The sound should have been normal. It wasn't. It sounded like someone leaving on purpose. She moved fast, almost light. Not nervous, not guilty, just relieved. Like a woman walking out of a room she'd been waiting to escape. I met her at the door anyway. That's the thing about being a husband for a long time. You can be bleeding inside and still hold the door open out of habit. I kissed her cheek. Her skin smelled like expensive lotion and fresh confidence. Have a great time, I said. She smiled. I will. I'll call you when we land. Sure, I said, and watched her get in the car. The taillights disappeared. The street went quiet. I stood there a second longer than I needed to, then walked back into the house. It felt bigger. Not in a good way, like the walls had stepped back. Her promise sat in the air like smoke. Hours passed. No call, no text, nothing. And that's when the emptiness stopped feeling temporary and started feeling like the truth. When the front door shut behind Ruth, I didn't sit down. I started moving. Slow at first, like I was learning the layout of my own life all over again. I walked through the kitchen I remodeled 3 years ago. Cabinets I measured down to the 16th. The soft-closed drawers Ruth used to brag about to her friends. Caleb built all this. I ran my fingers along the counter edge without thinking, like checking for a crack. Then the dining table. Walnut. Butterfly joints. 8 months of late nights after commissions, sanding while Ruth watched TV. I built that table as an anniversary gift because I believed in the idea of us sitting there when we were old. The shelves in the living room. The dresser in our bedroom. The window seat in Ruth's office. Pieces of me scattered through the house like proof I belonged here. But that day, the place felt staged, like a model home, like I was just the guy who installed the set. In the bathroom, I reached behind Ruth's products and my hand hit a glass bottle. Cologne, not mine, nearly empty, expensive. I stood there holding it, staring at the label, and felt my stomach drop in a quiet, sick way. I took a photo of the cologne label like it was evidence at a crime scene. Then I did something I never thought I'd do in my own marriage. I started looking, not rummaging like a jealous kid, looking like a man who finally realized the truth might be hiding in plain sight. In the back of her bathroom drawer, under a travel bag and a stack of sample lotions, I found a credit card I'd never seen. Not the joint card, not any account we talked about. This one was private, slim, and clean, like it had been living a separate life. I pulled up the transactions online and my chest tightened with every line item. Weekday lunches at restaurants I'd never heard of, parking garages downtown, and then hotels, always midweek, always afternoons. Same name again and again, Riverside Grand. I stared at it until the words went blurry. Then I opened my Maps app, typed it in, and watched the pin drop on the screen. 2 blocks from Colin Price's development office. That's when it stopped being a bad feeling and became a pattern. And patterns are what I understand. After I saw that Riverside Grand pin drop 2 blocks from Colin Price's office, sleep wasn't even on the table. I sat at my workbench with my phone in one hand and sawdust still on my jeans, and I did what any guy does when the story stops adding up. I started digging. Colin was easy to find. Real estate developer. Community leader. Photos of him in tailored suits, holding giant scissors at ribbon cuttings, smiling beside checks he didn't write. Gala shots. Charity dinners. Investor meet and greets. His teeth were too white. His tan looked sprayed on. The kind of man who treats life like a sales pitch. And then I saw her. Not front and center, never tagged, never acknowledged. But in a few pictures, Ruth was there in the background, blurred, half-hidden, like someone had tried to crop her out of the official version of his life, like she existed, as long as she stayed convenient. That's when I realized I hadn't been paranoid. I'd been late. I stopped eating without meaning to. Coffee, water, hours. Then I opened my notebook and drew a straight line down the page. Dates, charges, locations, names. Love didn't matter anymore. Sequence did. Once I started building that timeline, everything I'd tried to forget came back with teeth, especially the money. The Maui wedding wasn't just a plane ticket and a hotel. It was a 6-day destination package, resort fees, dinners, excursions, all wrapped up in one neat charge on our joint account. Wedding expenses, $8,000. I remember the number because I remember what it cost me to make it real. That winter, I took 3 extra commissions on top of my regular work. Long days in the garage, cold fingers, late nights under a shop light while the rest of the neighborhood slept. I told myself I was doing it for family, for Ruth, for peace, for the kind of marriage where you show up and you provide. Ruth loved that version of me. She'd pat my chest like I was a reliable appliance and say, "You're such a provider," like it was a compliment. Now it felt like a label on a box she planned to ship out. Because while I was busting my tail to pay for her sister's wedding, she was buying a seat for Colin Price. And the sickest part? I didn't just pay for the trip. I paid for the lie. By the 5th day, I stopped pretending I was just processing. I was moving. Quietly. Cleanly. The same way I build a cabinet. Measure twice, cut once, leave no splinters. I went to a different bank across town, one I'd never used before. I opened a new account in my name only and transferred exactly half of our savings into it. Not a dollar more. Not because I felt generous, because I wanted it airtight, fair on paper, impossible to spin into me being the bad guy. Then I called a divorce attorney, Sharon Blake. Older voice, tired but sharp, like she'd heard every version of Betrayal and learned to stop flinching. I emailed her what I had, the 2 tickets, the passenger names, the hotel charges, the cologne photo, the screenshots that showed Ruth orbiting Colin's world like a ghost. She replied within an hour. Open and shut, she wrote. Adultery. You'll keep most assets. Do you want to proceed? I stared at that line for a long time. This was the part where a man is supposed to feel relief. Instead, I felt nothing. And I didn't answer her. Not yet. That night it rained hard, the kind of Oregon rain that doesn't fall so much as press down on everything. I sat in my garage shop with the windows shaking and the smell of wet cedar drifting in like a warning. Sharon had given me the clean exit, file the papers, serve Ruth. Close the chapter. Simple. But simple didn't match what I was living with. Because this wasn't just cheating. This was being erased from my own life while I paid the bill for it. It was the calm smile, the sorry honey, the way she cut me out and expected me to swallow it like a grown man. Divorce felt too neat, too quick, too painless for her. I didn't want drama. I didn't want to scream or throw things. I wanted something that fit, something proportional, something that made the disrespect land where it belonged. So I texted Sharon 2 words, not yet. Then I pulled out my notebook and started drawing lines, boxes, arrows, measurements. A plan taking shape the way a blueprint does. Quiet at first, and then suddenly undeniable. I wasn't angry. I was clear. On the 6th day, Ruth finally checked in, not with a call, not with a text, with an Instagram post. Her in a yellow sundress, champagne glass lifted like a victory. Maui sunset behind her, orange and soft, the kind of light people pay thousands to stand in. The caption said something like, "Sister Love and Island Magic." 40-something likes in the first hour. Emily was in the background laughing, hair blowing, looking genuinely happy. That part almost made it hurt worse. Colin wasn't in the frame. Of course he wasn't. But his watch was. A Rolex Submariner on a man's wrist, pouring champagne into Ruth's glass from just outside the shot. I'd seen that same watch online on Colin's hand at a ribbon cutting. Same angle, same smug little flex, like he couldn't help leaving a signature. I stared at the screen until my eyes felt dry. Then I typed, "Beautiful. Miss you. Smooth. Husband-like. Harmless." She liked my comment within seconds. That little heart icon landed like a joke told at my expense. And I understood something simple. She wasn't just lying to me. She was comfortable doing it. A week later, I picked Ruth up at the airport like nothing happened, because that's what men like me do when we're still deciding how to break. She walked out of arrivals tan and glowing, like the sun had signed her name. She hugged me tight and I caught it right away. Resort lotion. And that cologne. Same expensive bite under the sweetness. "You look good," I said. "Island air," she smiled. "You should have been there. It was magical." In the car, she scrolled through photos on her phone and narrated them like a tour guide. The ceremony, the beach, the buffet, Emily in her dress. Colin appeared in exactly 0 pictures. She never said his name. She didn't have to. The silence said it for her. Then she sighed, like she was doing me a favor. "I'm still so sorry about your ticket. It happens, you know." I looked at the road and kept my voice steady. "It happens." Something in her relaxed, like she'd successfully pressed my emotions into a small box. And right there, that phrase became useful. Not comfort, not closure, a tool, a blade I could sharpen slowly until the day it finally cut. After Ruth got back from Maui, I didn't ask questions. Not one. No, "Where were you?" No, "Who was with you?" No late-night interrogation. I let the house stay quiet. I let her fill the silence with whatever story she needed to believe. I moved through our rooms like the furniture I'd built, present, useful, unnoticed. I made coffee. I took out the trash. I nodded at the right moments. I gave her the version of me she wanted most, the steady husband who doesn't make waves. And because I didn't push, she stopped guarding herself. Her phone sat face up on the counter, notifications popping like little confessions. Her laptop stayed logged in, same password she'd used for years. She'd walk into the shower and leave it all right there, trusting the man she'd already written off. That's the part people don't talk about. Betrayal makes some folks careful. It makes others sloppy. I started taking notes, dates, times, names, little charges, little lies. I didn't do it with rage. I did it the way I measure a board before a cut. Because when you're invisible, you're not powerless. Invisible means free. 3 weeks after the wedding, Maya Reynolds called me on a Tuesday evening. Maya handles logistics for a design supply firm I've bought from for years. Hardware, specialty wood, the stuff you don't find at a big box store. She's practical, sharp, and not the type to waste words. "Caleb," she said. "Weird question. You okay?" I almost laughed. Almost. "Yeah, why?" A pause. Then, "Ruth came by the warehouse today." My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed flat. "What for?" "She said you've been distant. Work stress." Maya's tone turned colder. Then she started asking about your finances, if you'd moved money around, if you were hiding something. So Ruth was watching now. Not for guilt, she was watching for control. Maya added, "I told her to mind her business. But, Caleb, what's going on?" I stared at my workshop wall, tools lined up, orderly, honest. Trust used to feel simple. Then I remembered Maui, 2 tickets, 1 seat missing. "Can we meet?" I said. "Not near town, somewhere quiet." And when Maya agreed, I understood something else. I didn't just need proof anymore. I needed one person who could look at the truth and not flinch. We met at a coffee shop off a highway exit about 40 minutes outside the city, far enough that nobody accidentally runs into you. Late afternoon, gray light, the kind of place where people stare into mugs and mind their own business. Maya slid into the booth across from me and didn't smile. "Okay," she said. "Talk." I didn't build it up. I laid it out. I put my phone on the table and showed her the statement. 2 tickets to Hawaii. Then the passenger names. Then the hotel charges at Riverside Grand. Then the cologne photo. Then the screenshots. Ruth in the background of Colin Price's shiny little life, like she belonged there more than she belonged at home. Maya's face changed in stages. Shock first, then disgust, then something colder, like a door locking. "You're going to divorce her," she said finally. "Eventually," I said, and I surprised myself with how calm that sounded. I pulled out my notebook and slid it toward her. Not the evidence pages, the sketches, lines, boxes, a timeline, a structure. She read for a long minute, eyes moving slowly, like she didn't want to understand but couldn't stop. Then she looked up at me and whispered, "Caleb, this is insane." And I didn't correct her, because insane was just what it looks like when a quiet man finally builds something for himself. Maya leaned back and lowered her voice. "Be straight with me," she said. This sounds illegal." "It's not," I said. No swagger, just certainty. I checked, repeatedly. She stared at the sketches again, tapping one page with her finger. "So you want me to help you, using my access, vendors, supply chains, paperwork? That's my job on the line." "I know," I said. "That's why I asked you out here." For a second, neither of us spoke. The espresso machine hissed behind the counter. A couple argued softly by the window. Normal life happening 3 feet away while mine was being dismantled on a sticky tabletop. Maya shook her head once like she was trying to shake me off. "Why would I risk anything for this?" I didn't give her a speech. I just told the truth. "Because you're curious if it'll work." That landed. Her eyes narrowed, then softened in a way that said I'd named the thing she didn't want to admit. Finally, she exhaled. "If I do this," she said, "you keep me invisible. No texts, no trail, no connection. Ever." I nodded. "Deal." We didn't hug. We didn't toast to it. We just sat there, 2 adults making a quiet agreement. And when we walked out, the air felt colder. Not because of the weather, because the plan had just become real. Spring came in the same quiet way it always does here. Rain thinning out, lawns turning green again, neighbors power washing driveways like they can rinse the year clean. Inside my house, I played my part. I became the perfect, unbothered husband. I asked about her day. I nodded at her stories. I kissed her forehead when she walked past me. I kept my voice steady and my face neutral, like nothing in me had shifted. And Ruth took the bait. She started saying work event the way people say grocery store. Casual, unchecked. She'd grab her purse, fix her hair in the mirror, and toss me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'll be late," she'd say. "Okay," I'd answer. One word, no tone. Then I'd write it down. Date, time, where she claimed she was going, what she wore, what her phone did afterward. Little charges that didn't match the story. I wasn't hunting, I was measuring. Because rushing creates mistakes, and mistakes leave fingerprints. I didn't want fingerprints. I wanted clean lines. By the time Ruth stopped watching me for reactions, I knew I was getting close to something bigger than proof. And then, in May, she walked into the kitchen glowing like a teenager and said, "Caleb, you're not going to believe this." Ruth told me like it was good news for both of us. Colin Price's company was launching a new design venture, high-end interiors, boutique furniture, luxury residential installs. "A whole new division," she said, eyes bright, talking fast. And then she dropped it. They hired her as creative director, her dream job. She paced the kitchen while she spoke, hands cutting the air like she was already presenting to investors. Salary, title, influence. She said words like vision and brand identity and curated experience. I listened the way you listen to a stranger on a long flight, polite, detached, waiting for the landing. I asked questions anyway. "What's the pay? Benefits? Hours? Who reports to you?" Not because I cared, because details matter, because details are where people slip. Ruth smiled like my interest meant support. "See, this is why I love you. You're steady. Steady. That old label again. That night, Maya called me and didn't bother with small talk. I pulled what I could, she said. That venture, it's not solid, it's leveraged, debt, investor promises. They need a big contract to look real. And suddenly it clicked. Ruth wasn't just chasing love, she was chasing status. And Colin needed something built fast enough to impress people who only respect what shines. After Maya told me that venture was running on debt and promises, I didn't feel fear. I felt direction. When you build anything, tables, marriages, reputations, the first step is the frame. So I built a frame they'd never see. I formed a new LLC in a neighboring state, clean paperwork, a name that sounded ordinary enough to disappear in a stack of invoices. Nothing flashy, nothing that pointed back to Caleb Hartman, guy in a garage in Oregon. The public-facing owner was a relative of Maya's, someone with no connection to my world, a name on paper, a shadow with a driver's license. Then I leased a barn workshop 2 hours away, out near the coast where cell service drops and people mind their business. I moved a few tools at a time, like a man starting a hobby, not building a second life. When Ruth asked where I'd been, I told her the truth in the simplest way. Major commission. She didn't ask what. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Good. Bring home money." That's when it finally landed, cold and clear. In her mind, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was an ATM that could sand wood. And that realization made everything after feel easy. In June, Colin's company posted a supplier bid for their showroom launch. Custom furniture, materials, manufacturing, install coordination. The kind of contract that doesn't just pay bills. It sets a company up for a year. It's the deal you brag about at cookouts. The deal you put on your website in bold letters. Maya sent me the details, not illegally, just what anyone in her industry could see if they knew where to look. Timelines, required specs, deliverables, and the most important part, how badly they needed it to go smoothly. I submitted a bid through my new LLC, professional language, tight pricing, a timeline that looked aggressive but believable, and the portfolio, my work, photographed clean, presented under a different name. No garage, no Oregon suburb, just craftsmanship, polished and anonymous. Ruth and Colin reviewed it together. I know they did. I could picture it. Her laptop open, his confident nod, both of them thinking they'd found some hidden gem vendor. A few weeks later, the acceptance email came through. They chose me. They didn't know it, but they'd just handed me the keys to their big moment, and I was about to build it from the inside out. Once they accepted the bid, I stopped being a husband who might leave. I became a builder with a deadline. I outfitted the barn like a real shop. Industrial saws, clamps that could crush bone, stacks of hardwood sorted by species and grade. Everything had a place. Everything stayed clean. Not because I'm obsessive, because sloppiness shows up later, right when you can't afford it. I kept telling myself the same thing while I worked. This isn't a hobby. This is my life. My hands have fed me for 20 years. They've paid mortgages, fixed broken chairs, held together a home I thought mattered. I started with the chairs because chairs are honest. A chair has to take weight, it has to take disrespect, someone dropping into it after too many drinks. If it survives that, it survives anything. Every measurement felt like an oath. Every cut was calm, controlled, almost peaceful. And I remembered something most people don't understand. Building something to last is hard. Building something to fail the right way is harder. I didn't want a dramatic collapse, no injuries, no chaos. I wanted failure that was slow, visible, and expensive. A slow-motion ruin you can't talk your way out of. Ruth emailed over her vision, like I was still her trusted expert. Mood boards, color palettes, words like coastal luxury and Scandinavian clean. Light oak, soft edges, that airy showroom look rich people call effortless. I stared at it and felt something sharp twist in my chest because I recognized the taste. I taught her that taste. For years, she'd ask what looked right, what felt solid, what aged well. She learned her preferences the way people learn a language, by living with someone fluent. Now she was using that language to build a life that didn't include me. So I chose the wood carefully. Good lumber, properly dried, nothing that screamed cheap. but I picked boards with quiet flaws. A knot placed just near a stress point, grain that ran just slightly wrong where weight would pull over time. Microscopic checks you'd never see in a showroom photo. Then I assembled the chair perfectly, except for one detail. The joint that mattered most? I cut it just a hair loose. Not enough to fail today, not enough to fail tomorrow. Just enough that weeks later, under normal use, it would begin to separate like a marriage does. Quietly at first, then all at once. From the outside, it looked flawless. Inside, it was a time bomb no one could prove I set. After the chairs, I moved on to the tables. Tables are where people lean in, talk business, sign checks, pretend everything's solid. Ruth wanted long showroom pieces with breadboard ends, clean lines, high-end photos, that heirloom look that makes strangers trust a brand. Here's what most people don't think about. Wood is alive. Not like a pet, but like a body. It expands when it's humid. It tightens when it's dry. You're supposed to let it breathe. I didn't. I locked the breadboard ends down tight, glued the movement out of it. In a climate-controlled showroom, under soft lights and steady air, it would look perfect. It would hold shape. It would impress. At first. But seasons don't care about branding. A delivery door left open too long. A heater running dry in winter. One humid week that swells the grain just enough. Then the stress has to go somewhere. And when it goes, it doesn't go politely. The crack runs straight through the center like a decision you can't take back. I didn't want collapse. I wanted fracture. Ruth's favorite pieces were the floating cabinets. No visible support, she told me, excited like a kid. Clean, modern, like they're hovering. It was the kind of detail that makes people say wow without knowing why. The kind of detail that sells status. So I built the cabinets perfectly. Tight corners, smooth faces, hardware rated for the weight. From the outside, they were flawless, exactly what she wanted Colin's investors to see. The support system was where the truth lived. Colin's showroom was in an older downtown building he'd revitalized. Exposed brick, big windows, that polished industrial vibe. The kind of place that looks strong until you know where the weak spots are. Maya got me what I needed. Plans, renovation notes, enough to understand the bones. I placed the mounting points where the studs were compromised, knot holes, old splits. Areas that had been patched, not replaced. It wasn't obvious. It never is. The cabinets would hold at first, weeks, maybe months. Then they'd start to creep, a millimeter, then another. A slow sag no one could blame on a single moment. Just wear, just bad luck, just it happens. Their reputation was going to hang on those cabinets, and I made sure it was hanging from the wrong kind of support. They announced the launch date like it was a holiday, November 15th. Press, investors. An invite-only night where people with money decide who's real and who's just playing dress-up. Ruth came home buzzing, talking fast, already living in that room full of strangers. A week later, she bought a deep green silk dress, expensive enough that she kept the receipt like it mattered. She asked me to zip it one night in our bedroom. The fabric slid through my fingers like water. She turned toward the mirror, smiling at herself more than at me. "You're coming, right?" she asked. Like it was obvious. Like nothing had happened. Like Maui was a dream I made up. I looked at my own reflection beside hers. I'd let my beard grow in over the months. My face looked harder, older, like the softer parts had been sanded down. Ruth's eyes flicked to me, and for a second she hesitated, almost like she didn't recognize the man standing behind her. "I'll be there," I said. Her shoulders loosened. She kissed my cheek and went back to scrolling her phone. And I realized she still didn't understand why that answer mattered. She thought it meant support. To me, it meant timing. The night before the launch, I drove out to the barn alone. The shop was empty now, no stacks of finished pieces, no shipping pallets, no sawdust storms in the air, just the ghost smell of oak and oil and the faint hum of quiet after months of work. I stood in the doorway for a long minute, hands in my jacket pockets, breathing like I was trying to slow my own pulse down. This place had held every ugly thought I couldn't say out loud. It had taken my anger and turned it into measurements, into joints, into hidden decisions. Maya showed up a little after dusk. She didn't walk in right away. She just stood beside me, looking at the empty floor. "You can still stop this," she said. Not dramatic, just honest. I shook my head. They hurt me slow, I told her. Quiet, expensive. I'm just returning it in the same language. Before she left, I built one last thing at my bench. A small wooden box, smooth edges, a narrow slot on top. Simple, clean, like a ballot box, like a confession box. Something to hold paper when the time came. When I locked up, the air felt sharper. Not excitement, not fear, just one clear thought settling in my chest. This is consequence. The showroom opened like a movie set. 200 guests in nice coats and nicer smiles. A string quartet tucked into a corner like background proof of class. Warm lighting, champagne, little plates of food nobody actually ate. The kind of room where people don't relax, they perform. And my furniture looked perfect in it. The tables caught the light the way Ruth wanted. The chairs lined up clean and expensive. The floating cabinets made the walls look modern, effortless. If you took a photo, it could have been a magazine spread. That's the part that still stings. My hands can build beauty even when my heart's turned off. Ruth moved through the crowd like she belonged there, radiant, confident, introducing people, laughing too loud in the right places. Colin worked the room near the bar, shaking hands with investors like he was selling them a future. I walked in calm, too calm, like I'd already grieved. Then Colin found me. He stuck his hand out, smooth and practiced. "You must be Caleb. Ruth talks about you." I took his hand. "Does she?" He smiled. "All good things. And hey, your supplier? Top tier. These pieces are incredible." I nodded, polite, neutral, like a man hearing praise at a funeral, because I knew what was coming. And at exactly 7:15, the first small crack made everyone in that room listen. It wasn't dramatic. That's what made it worse. A guest, middle-aged guy in a blazer, the kind who talks about golf and dividends, pulled out one of the dining chairs near the center display. He sat down, shifted his weight, and laughed at something someone said. Then, crack, soft, quick, like a knuckle popping. The chair didn't collapse. It didn't throw him to the ground. It just gave. One leg joint loosened and the seat tilted a few inches, enough to turn confidence into panic. The man sprang up fast, face flushing, palms out like he needed everyone to know he wasn't drunk. People stared. Not because a chair broke, because broken things in a showroom are a kind of prophecy. Colin rushed over with that polished grin, clapping the guy on the shoulder. Hey, must have been assembled too tight," he joked, laughing a little too hard. "We'll get you a better seat." Staff whisked the chair away like it was evidence. Someone slid another chair into its place. Conversations restarted, but quieter. Eyes kept drifting back to the display. I stood near the edge of the room and watched without blinking, because I could feel the air change. When you're around men with money, you learn this fast. They can forgive a lot, but they don't forgive weakness. And a single cracked chair had just introduced doubt into the room, small at first, then spreading. After that first chair, the room tried to breathe again. People laughed a little louder, like volume could erase doubt. Someone turned the quartet up in their head. Colin kept smiling, Ruth kept floating, and for a few minutes it almost worked. Then one of the display tables made a sound I'll never forget. Not a snap, not a bang, more like a tired sigh. The far corner dipped just an inch, subtle enough that your brain argued with your eyes. A server didn't argue. He was carrying a tray of appetizers and champagne flutes, moving fast, doing his job. The moment that corner lowered, the tray slid like it had found a downhill slope. Glass skated. Then it went. The crash cut through the music like a knife, a bright, ugly shatter that made every conversation stop mid-sentence. A few people flinched. Someone gasped. The quartet kept playing, but now it sounded wrong, like violin over a funeral. I watched Ruth's smile freeze on her face. Not fade, freeze. She looked around and saw what I saw. The whispers starting, the careful sidesteps, the subtle eye contact between investors. Because in rooms like this, reputation is oxygen. And their tank had just started leaking. By 8:30, nobody wanted to sit. People clustered near the bar, standing on their own 2 feet like the room itself couldn't be trusted. The laughter had turned thin. Every compliment sounded like a courtesy. Colin kept doing damage control. Handshakes, jokes, "We'll fix it. Must be shipping stress." He was talking fast now. Ruth disappeared for a minute, then came back with that same bright expression she wore in Maui, except it wasn't real. It was plaster. Her eyes kept flicking toward the displays like she was waiting for the next hit. And then it happened. One of the floating cabinets along the wall shifted forward. Not a fall, a tilt, slow enough to make you watch it, helpless. The mounting groaned. The cabinet held for a breath, and then the dishes inside clattered together like teeth chattering in the cold. Glass broke, plates cracked, a sharp, ugly cascade that sounded like a gunshot in a room full of polite people. Silence hit immediately after. Total. Heavy. Even Colin stopped talking. I watched him sprint toward the wall, hands out, trying to catch the moment before it became a story. Too late. A few guests were already backing toward the exit, murmuring excuses. Early morning, babysitter, long drive, great event though. The party was dying while the music was still playing. And Ruth looked like she finally understood what it feels like when the floor you're standing on isn't yours anymore. By 9 o'clock, the room had that wounded feeling, like everyone was pretending not to notice the blood. The quartet kept playing, but it sounded like background noise at a bad meeting. Guests hovered near the door, doing the polite math of when they could leave without looking rude. That's when a woman with a badge and a small camera stepped up to me. Design blogger type. Sharp eyes, neutral smile, the kind of person who can smell a story before it hits the internet. "Are you Ruth Hartman's husband?" she asked. I nodded once. She leaned in slightly. "What do you think happened here? Structural failure? Poor materials?" I could have played dumb, but dumb doesn't travel. A clean explanation does. I kept my voice calm, like I was talking to a client. "Could be material defects," I said. "Could be rushed assembly or poor oversight. Furniture isn't just pretty lines. Load points matter. Stress distribution matters. If you miss one joint, the whole piece starts telling on you." She scribbled. Fast. I didn't name Colin. I didn't name Ruth. I didn't accuse anyone. I just added one sentence and let it sit there like a match near gasoline. Recommendations don't guarantee quality. Her eyes flicked up. She understood. And I watched her walk away knowing she'd repeat my words in a nicer font tomorrow. I found Ruth in Colin's back office a few minutes later. The party noise was muffled behind the door, like the building itself was trying to hide what was happening. Ruth was sitting on the floor, heels off, makeup streaked, holding her phone like it might save her. Colin was on a call, pacing, voice raised. "This is sabotage," he snapped into the speaker. "It has to be. Everything was built to spec. This is someone trying to ruin us." He looked at me like I was furniture, an inconvenience. Ruth, though, she looked up and her face did something I'd never seen before. Fear. Real fear. I stepped inside and kept my voice gentle, almost warm. "Everything okay?" Ruth swallowed hard. "Caleb," her voice cracked. "Did you do this?" I didn't flinch. "Do what?" "The furniture. The failures." She wiped at her face, shaking. "This can't be random." I let the silence stretch just long enough to hurt. Then I said, steady as a metronome, "I've been working on my commission for months. You know that." Her eyes searched my face like she wanted a lie she could believe. I gave her my old line, the one she'd handed me in Maui. "It happens." Her skin went pale, like the meaning finally arrived all at once. Ruth came home after midnight. I heard her before I saw her. Cabinet doors slammed, a drawer yanked too hard, the sharp clink of a bottle hitting the counter. The kind of noise people make when they want the house to feel their panic. She appeared in the doorway still wearing that green dress like armor, eyes red, jaw tight. No small talk, no apology. "Did you sabotage the launch?" she asked. Straight to it. Like my pain was a rumor and her embarrassment was the emergency. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't act offended. I just looked at her and said, "How would I even do that, Ruth?" She stepped closer. "You've been distant, secretive. That commission, the money moving around. Tell me the truth." So I did it my way. Facts, in order. I opened my phone and showed her the airline charge. 2 tickets, Maui, then the names, her name, and Colin Price. Her face drained like someone pulled a plug. I didn't stop. Hotel charges, Riverside Grand, weekdays, months. I set the cologne photo on the counter, then the screenshots, her in the background of his life. She stared, breathing shallow. Finally, she whispered, "Okay, yes. Colin and we've been seeing each other." And the house went quiet, like it had been waiting to hear it out loud. Ruth started crying right away, the kind of crying that's part fear, part regret, part damage control. She reached for me like I was still her safe place. "Caleb, please," she said. "We can fix this. I'll end it. I'll call him tonight. We can do counseling, whatever you want." I didn't move. Not because I was trying to punish her, because I didn't recognize the woman standing in my kitchen anymore. 10 years together and she suddenly looked like a stranger wearing my wife's face. "Listen," I said, keeping my voice low. "You think this is about an affair?" "It is," she choked out. "I made a mistake." I shook my head once, slow, careful. "No, a mistake is forgetting milk. A mistake is a bad night and a confession." I held her gaze. "You didn't just cheat." She blinked, confused, like she wanted a version of this that ended with a plan. "You replaced me," I said. That word landed hard, not loud, just heavy, like a door closing without a slam. Ruth's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I looked away first, because I didn't want to watch her try to build a new lie out of broken pieces. "Go to bed," I told her. "We'll talk tomorrow." And for the first time, she obeyed without arguing, because she could feel it too. Something was over. Colin showed up 3 days later like he owned the place. No knock, no warning, just the garage door rattling, then him stepping into my shop with that confident, entitled stride, like I was the guest in my own life. He didn't even pretend to be polite. "Ruth destroyed my business," he snapped, face red, voice too loud for a room full of sharp tools. "My investors are furious. I'm looking at 6 figures in losses. I kept sanding a chair leg for an actual paying client. I let the grit do its slow, honest work." "Sounds difficult," I said. He blinked, thrown off by the calm. "Don't play dumb. The supplier, this LLC, it's a ghost. And you've been hiding money. You've been gone. You've been building something." I finally set the sandpaper down and looked at him the way you look at a man pointing at shadows and calling them facts. "You think I sabotaged furniture you can't trace to me?" I asked. "Then prove intent." His jaw worked like he wanted to swing. He didn't. He just stared, searching for a crack. I gave him one thing, clean and final. "Ruth and I are divorcing. You can have her. Congratulations." And he left like a man realizing the room was never his. I didn't guess they'd meet at the Riverside Grand. I knew. Patterns don't lie, and that hotel had been their favorite lie for months. So when Maya told me Ruth agreed to sit down with Colin and his lawyer to talk lawsuits and damage control, I drove downtown and walked into that bar like I belonged there. They were in the corner, papers spread out, half-drunk drinks, faces drawn tight. Colin looked up first, furious. Ruth looked up second, scared. I sat down without asking. "Heard you two were strategizing," I said. "Thought I'd save you some time." Colin shoved a folder toward me like he was presenting a smoking gun. Business registrations, names, timelines, suspicion dressed up as evidence. I flipped through it slowly, then closed it. "This proves you're desperate," I said. "Not that I did anything," Ruth's voice came out small. "Caleb, just tell me, was it you?" I leaned in, calm enough to chill the air. "Here's a hypothetical," I said. "Even if someone wanted to make your launch fail, you'd still have to prove intent, not guesses, not vibes, proof." Colin's chair scraped back. He lunged. Pure ego, no control. I stood, caught his wrist, and pinned him just long enough for him to feel powerless without getting hurt. I brought my mouth close to his ear and whispered, "You're sloppy. I'm precise." Then I let go, straightened my jacket, and walked out while Ruth sat there realizing the worst part wasn't what happened. It was that she'd never be sure. I left the Riverside Grand that night with my hands steady and my throat tight. Outside, March air hit my face like a reset button. Exactly 1 year since Maui. 1 year since I stood in my bedroom and got told I didn't have a seat on a trip I paid for. I drove out to the barn before sunrise, no music, no calls, just the road, the dark, and that quiet feeling you get when something finally stops chasing you. Inside, the shop smelled like linseed oil and cut wood, simple, clean, honest. The way life should have been. People think design is about creating something beautiful. Sometimes it is, but mostly it's about knowing where things fail, where the pressure sits, where the cracks start. You can build a table that holds a family for decades, or you can build something that looks perfect until it breaks at the worst moment. That's the part I hate admitting. I knew how to do both, so I chose the only thing that still felt real. Honest work, real clients, furniture built to last. Because you can lose love, you can lose status, but if you lose your self-respect, you don't get it back. And now I'll ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you forgive her or would you walk away?